Hey guys, you are listening to Deus Ex Machina. I'm Soli, I'm a film student, and I like to talk about films and TV shows. By now, I have only talked about films, but now is the time to talk about TV shows. So basically, not TV shows, but Netflix shows. Today is the day that Shadow and Bone hit the screens. And I was excited for this. In a very good way, in a very bad way as well. Because Shadow and Bone is a very good book, but especially Six of Crows is a very good book. So let me tell you, Lee Bardugo, I hope I pronounced your name right, is an author who writes fantasy books called the Grishaverse. The Grishaverse is a fantasy world that is taking place in a fantasy world. No joke here. Shadow and Bone is the first Grishaverse book by Lee Bardugo, and it's about a sun summoner. So to clarify this, Grisha means people with special gifts who can control or create stuff. So that contains like healers who can heal wounds, of course. Then Inferni who can make fire, and also sun summoners, basically. So Shadow and Bone is the story of a young girl called Alina Starkov who discovers very late in her life that she is actually Grisha, and not any Grisha but a sun summoner. A sun summoner is something that is very, very rare, so rare actually that there are prophecies and legends about how the sun summoner will come one day and save everyone. So that is happening, and I personally prefer Six of Crows towards Shadow and Bone, because in Six of Crows there is also the Grisha storyline. There is a Grisha in the main cast, Nina, but it's more of an outcast story. So Six of Crows is a story about 6 outcasts, more or less, who plan a heist and do a heist, and it's incredible. It's amazingly written, it is so creative, it makes so much fun to read it, and the characters are amazingly developed. So given these two stories play in the same universe, it's not a thing that they are connected to each other, at least to my knowledge. Because it's completely different storylines, and I checked. Like Catadam, where Six of Crows starts and partly plays, isn't even on the map in the first books, in Shadow and Bone and Siege and Storm, for example. It's all a little bit apart from one another. And it's 2 different storylines, it's 2 different books. These 2 do not belong together. Imagine how I felt when I figured out that Shadow and Bone, the Netflix series, will not just feature Shadow and Bone, the actual story Shadow and Bone, but also the Crows. Including, of course, the one and only Spreaker. To me, Six of Crows is one of my favorite books ever, and Crow Kingdom as well. And Spreaker is, to be honest, I guess my favorite fictional character ever, because he's so amazingly developed, and there's so many little details about him that you notice that weird you out somehow, but they all have an explanation, but that unravels throughout the story, and it's just amazing. So I thought, how, Netflix? How? How do you want to put two different stories with completely different premises into one TV show? I wasn't too excited, especially because I expected that something like the Shadowhunter situation would happen. So, Shadowhunters is a great book series. So, The Mortal Instruments, The Infernal Devices. Those books are a very, very good series, and they are so much fun to read. They have great characters, a great story, and they all work together because they all play in the same universe but also feature different characters throughout the different parts of the series. For example, Mortal Instruments features a lot of significant characters, and The Infernal Devices does that too, but the two do not belong together, even though they feature the same world, the same topic, the same premise basically. And even though the characters are all like related, so you have the old version of the people, like the Victorian version of the people, the new version of the, it works, but it does not belong together. And when I read The Mortal Instruments, I was super hyped for the TV show, and I'm sorry, but this TV show, Shadowhunters, is an abomination. I can't say anything else about it. It's terrible. Maybe it would work if it wasn't called Shadowhunters, if it was its own story. But still, what is that? Why is that? So, yeah, but that's a different topic. So, I had like bad expectations for Shadow and Bone because I thought maybe the Shadowhunter thing will happen again, and I really can't. I can't. Like, I like Leigh Dugo's books even more than Cassandra Clare's, and that would hurt, especially because they feature Spreaker. And Spreaker is a character that to me seems to be impossible to cast and impossible to play, because it's a very certain character who has to be a very certain way and who has to look a very certain way, and it all has to come together and work and not be weird. It's hard. And then today, as soon as it came out, I binged the whole thing. And I'm pleasantly surprised. I didn't thought so as well. I was like already, I was done with it before I even started. That was my attitude about this. And then it started. And it started like the books, which surprised me. Of course, not exactly like the books, because Alina wasn't nearly run over by the Darkling's carriage and stuff like that. And they added this weird thing where she burned the maps so she could join the ship going through the void, even though in the books she already was a part of the crew for that ship to cross the void. What I'm saying, it made minor changes in the beginning, but it actually stuck to the storyline, to the characters, and to what happened more than I thought. It was good. It was really good. I was surprised. But then Six of Crows was introduced. And my brain just couldn't figure out how a gigantic story like Shadow and Bone and a similar gigantic story like Six of Crows could work in one season of the same show. Just how? Because Six of Crows is such a complex and suspenseful story, and Shadow and Bone is also very complex. I just couldn't figure out how they wanted to make a show out of both of these instead of just make Shadow and Bone and Six of Crows. I would watch the shit out of that. It came to the introduction of the crows. And the first introduction we get, the first face we see, is Jasper. And Jasper is, of course, working more like a comic relief, so he isn't the deepest character at first, but more like the funny one that is always there for a joke when the story gets so dark that someone needs to brighten up the situation. And that is brand on Jasper. We see him shoot. He threw a coin into the air, shot a hole in it with his gun. So we have already the knowledge that Jasper is an incredibly talented shooter. And then comes Spreaker. So, just to clarify that, I did not spoiler myself in any way. Of course, I read the books, and I mean stuff like I did not watch any trailer for this. I did not look up who the actors are or any promotional pictures in any way. I was like, I'm keeping me clean. I want the real reaction in that moment. And again, I was pleasantly surprised. Cass was not completely miscast. I mean, sure, it was not exactly what I imagined, but it fit. Let's be honest, you can't expect your exact imagination of a character from a book to be cast in a TV show. That's just impossible. That's just how it is. So I was really surprised by the choice because I know the actor who plays Cass from a children's TV show called Free Rein, which is a show about horses and summer holidays, like that. So I would never ever thought of him for this character, but it fit, it perfectly fit. It was very nice. I mean, sure, it wasn't that deep yet, and when his story starts to unravel, it might be getting deeper and more into his character, because right now he was more like a supporting character, not a main character. But I was okay with the casting. In general, all the characters look like they are described, or how I imagined them. Shadow and Bone less than Six of Crows, but Six of Crows just spot on, people. So the costume and makeup department, perfect. Casting department, perfect. Love it. Going on. So the story starts off like the book, and Alina noticed that she's a sun summoner. Boom. Everyone's afraid of her somehow because sun summoner, where? Now the crows come into play. And I thought, okay, they get their own storyline. But no. Their story actually cooperates with the other story, because they have like a prequel situation. That's not the word, I'm sorry. They basically tell the story about the crows that happens before Six of Crows, which I personally love, because these books obviously do not play at the same time. Through that, it's perfectly fine to use the characters and put the characters in the story without ruining the essence of Six of Crows, because maybe, just maybe, they will put the effort to make an entire season or something out of the heist. I would love that. It's working. It's really working. First off, I thought, why is stuff happening? Because Alexei is one of the first characters to die in the void. He's just grabbed by one of these creatures and killed immediately, like 5 pages into the book. In the series, he manages to get off the ship and actually makes it out of the void on foot, one completely through, and comes out on the other side of the void. And I thought, like, why Alexei is not that important? Like, he has like 3 lines and I don't know, but he is the one who connects the plot with the crows, because he has the information. He witnessed the sun summoner summon light and destroy the void, partially, just at that moment, but you get it. So that is why the crows get the job to kidnap Alina Starkov, and so the plot begins to tie together. And it's working. It's really working. It's written really well. Of course, we start off with different storylines. We see the crows, we see the Grisha and Alina, and how all of that develops. We see Alina's relationship with the Darkling change, with Mel change. And we see the crows, how they approach such things, how Catadam looks. We actually get Catadam. Love it. And it all leads together. And they actually make it. They go to Rovka, to the small palace, and they can actually kidnap Alina. So they don't really kidnap her. She basically gets into their carriage's boot, and they can drive off with her already on the carriage because she just got in there, which is a little bit weird. Within the story, it actually works, even though it's a little bit Deus Ex Machina because the plan of the crows actually failed, which surprised me because it's the crows. But through that, they actually get together at that point. So we have the main character Alina and Mal join the crows shortly, and then their ways part again. And we get teased at the beginning of Six of Crows, because throughout this entire story we also see Nina and Matthias. I know they say Matthias in the show, and I know a lot of people pronounce it Matthias, but where I come from we say Matthias, so get along with that. Their story is a little bit more separated from the others. Nina is supposed to be consulted by the crows, but disappears before that because the Fjerdans get her and capture her and bring her on the ship, because the Fjerdans are witch hunters. Not all of them. Fjerdans believe that Grisha are witches, so they have witch hunters who kill Grisha. They bring her away before she can even meet the main characters, but then we have the storyline how Nina meets Matthias. And that is also a very, very bold but super clever move. In Six of Crows, in flashbacks, we get to know how Nina and Matthias, who are polar opposites to each other, not just in their profession but also in the way their characters work, get to know each other and get to fall in love with each other. They just tell it in this season, in the first season of Shadow and Bone, as a part storyline, and it's amazing. And in the end, Nina meets them on the ship and introduces herself to the crows, which means that is the gateway to the Six of Crows. And it's basically how Matthias got into the Ice Court as a prisoner, because now he wants to kill Nina. Nice. And that is actually a thing that I liked about the Netflix show, the Netflix adaptation, way more than I liked about the books. In the books, I always disliked Matthias. I don't know why. I always thought he was douchey and mean and just tried to kill Nina, and I liked Nina. And when I first read the book, I read the book as soon as it was on the market, I instantly disliked Matthias. And maybe in all the times I've reread the books, I just kept this mindset of not liking him. Maybe his character's great, but to me he always was douchey. And because I disliked him from the beginning on, I didn't really change my mind about him. And that is why I don't really like the relationship between Nina and Matthias, because why, Nina? Why? You're so good and he's so Matthias. And in the Netflix series, it's actually cute, because Matthias is not just this big old mean Fjerdan witch hunter douchebag. He's actually cute, and they interact with each other, and it's super cute. And these two actors, they have some chemistry. I can tell you, it's amazing. And the writers wrote really good scenes for them, and so you really understand why they fall in love and that they like each other, and they are so cute that I was fangirling the entire time about them, because yes. So their relationship, I shipped this relationship the least in the books, but right now I ship it the most in the TV series. I know we don't have all the relationships, and I like that as well. Like Mal and Alina, obviously there's coming something. We are not as far along as I would have thought by the end of this season. Then we have this Alina Darkling situation, which is obviously important to the plot, that moves on forward very fastly. very quickly. And we have Nina and Matthias. But another love romantic storyline is Cass and Ines. Yeah, and I was really not scared, that's the wrong word, but I had the bad expectation that they are going to push it too hard, that they wanted to put another romance in there, and that Cass and Ines would actually have romantic scenes with each other, which they don't in the TV series, but neither in the books, because Cass is a non-emotional person. He's really closed up because of his backstory. He is not talkative, he's not touchy because of reason. No spoilers here, but it's terrible. That is why I like that they didn't push it too hard, because Ines is kind of a barrier person who doesn't want to get too into stuff, and Cass is also like that, but even more extremely. They are two characters who love each other, but it's moving extremely slowly because both of them are just too stupid. No, that's not what, Both have issues with that, and that's why it's just a slow burner, and which makes it in the end even more cute, because in this entire season there's only 3 times where Cass is actually emotional with Ines, and twice of that is just him telling her that he needs her. He doesn't say anything else or explanation or anything, just says, I need you. The 3rd time is when Cass admits that Alina, as a sun summoner, is a saint, because Ines has a very strong belief in saints and Cass doesn't. That's why this is cute. He admits her beliefs. Not completely, but he gets along with what Ines believes and is like, if you believe that, I believe that. That is so cute. It's really, really cute. Also, next to good casting, good writing, also the quality of this show is... Yes, I like it. The costumes are great. And I have to say, someone did their research, because the countries and areas that feature in Shadow and Bone and Six of Crows are fantasy areas and worlds, but they are heavily inspired by real regions. So, for example, Ravka is very much inspired by Russia or Eastern European cultures, like the Ukraine or Poland. I like that the people who made the costumes and the people who made the surroundings and sets, that they actually really paid attention to that. So the culture of Russia is somewhat mirrored in Ravka, beginning with the clothing, with the kaftans. It's looking very Russian, very Eastern European, and that is perfect. When the names are very Russian and the writing is very Russian, we can also take inspiration for the clothing, because apparently the climate is also inspired by Russia. So I like that very much. Also, Fjerden are obviously inspired by Scandinavia, so it's very cold with the climate situation. Their clothing is also very, not typically Scandinavian, but like a past Scandinavian. Like it fits very well, and this is why I like the research they put into costuming and making everything look nice and realistic. To me, Shadow and Bone has a very real feel, even though it's a fantasy world, because it's still, even though so much crazy stuff is happening, it still has this one foot in real life, through the cultures, through the political meaning behind a lot of things. And it's beautifully made, it's nicely shot, and except for the part where Alina is sun summoning and she's glowing from within because the light comes from within her, that is so creepily animated. It's super, super weird, and it creeped me out because it was complicated. I know that it's super, super hard to make, so I'm not judging. It just didn't fit in with the quality of the rest, because especially the other Grisha powers are depicted very, very high quality. When scholars or inferni or tide makers are on work, it's working, and you see what they do when they throw flames, for example. It's very nicely animated. So maybe it was just too hard, or maybe something didn't work as it was supposed to work, or that is actually the look they're going for. Who knows? But besides that, everything looks so high quality. There's so much thought in everything. It's nicely written. It's nicely played by the actors. I think the actors are great, except for a few cringy moments. But you always have a few cringy moments. Especially, so most people might don't notice that. I personally studied acting. I notice a lot of stuff, which is why I basically can't watch anything anymore. The pain. To me, it was surprisingly good. I had a lot of fun watching it. It was amazing to binge today. And I'm actually excited for the next season, and I wouldn't have thought that. And I do not think that they butchered my favorite books and Shadow and Bone. I mean, of course it's different. Of course they made changes for their format, because some things work better on TV than in books and the other way round. So for what they could do, I think they did a very decent job. And I enjoyed it. Always way to improve yourself, but after the Shadow Hunter thing, this was amazing and a blessing for my soul. Thank to the saints. And yeah, that's basically my very short review of a very exciting and binge-worthy TV show of my favorite books, which is now a mainstream fandom. Thank you very much, Netflix. And if you maybe just have watched the series, I recommend reading the books. Lee Bardugo is an amazing author. I personally, as I said, prefer Six of Crows. Just read it. It's beauty. Okay, so that's it from me today. Hope you had fun, and you will hear me next time. Bye!